Arsenal 2, Fulham 2. What does this mean for the title race at this early stage? Do Manchester City have a march on Arsenal? Only time will tell. But at this point, I want to welcome all of you new subscribers to this channel. My name is Izzy, and if you like this content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that like button, because it's going to let YouTube know that you are enjoying this video, and the algorithm will tell everybody else that they will as well. Now on to Arsenal against Fulham. Arsenal threw away a 2-1 late lead against 10-man Fulham to draw the game 2-2 in what I feel might not be the best result for Arsenal at this early stage. Now, Manchester City have historically been very slow starters, but if Arsenal are to steal a march on their rivals this season, they will want to keep up to the pace that Manchester City have set before. If you remember the Centurion season, and if you remember their battles against Liverpool, one blink and any title challenger is out of the running. Arsenal have had to set a scorching pace, especially last season, in order to try and keep a healthy distance away from City. And this game showed me a couple of things that make me feel that Arsenal might not last the distance. Now, as an Arsenal fan, it was disappointing to see them lose the lead late on, especially towards the end of the game when you expected Fulham to be slower, a little bit more lethargic. And with 10 men, for them not to close out this result was damning. Now, picture this. If this was Pep Guardiola against 10-man Fulham, you do not need that man advantage. Manchester City would probably have won this game. Now, if you watched my preview yesterday, you would know that I was very wary of the threat that Fulham posed. Arsenal have had historic games against Fulham where Fulham play well defensively and sometimes do not get their just result based off of their performance. Today they did. I think Fulham were so strong defensively, were courageous to go and take on Thomas Partey, isolate him well, and that led to their first goal in under a minute. Now, if Arsenal are to get anything out of this season, they need their home form to be consistent. Arsenal are conceding way too many goals at home. You can remember last season when they conceded 2 goals to Bournemouth, when they conceded 3 goals to Southampton, and eventually got beaten 4-1 away at Manchester City. The only worrying thing about Arteta and his men is that when it gets to these type of games, they always seem to have some kind of slump in them. Whether it was in the season that they were chasing down Tottenham to try and secure top 4 and eventually fell away with losses to Tottenham towards the end of the season and Newcastle, or whether it was last season against West Ham United and against Liverpool and their tie against Southampton. Arteta's men, once they hit a roadblock, they seem to not be able to rally back. Now, at the start of last season, they were able to do that. Losses to Manchester United and eventually to Manchester City saw them bounce back somewhat immediately after. Who can forget the Jorginho goal that cannoned back off of Martinez, or the wonderful 3-2 comeback against Bournemouth? Arteta's men are able to do that. But so early in the season, you have to keep pace with Manchester City because they are able to set such a scorching pace if they are right up on it, that it will be very difficult for anybody, not just Arsenal, but Liverpool or Manchester United or anybody else who has any genuine title ambitions to keep up with. On the other hand, Manchester City pick up the pace and they are absolute closers when it gets towards the end of the season. The fact that Arsenal are now conceding more goals at home than they do away from home, added to the fact that they weren't able to keep this lead against a 10-man Fulham at home, raises some worries for me. Manchester City, if they were put in the same position as Arsenal were today, they would have closed that game out. They would likely have scored a 3rd goal. They don't have the jitteriness of the Kun Aguero days when they had to score 2 goals in the last 3 minutes to win the championship against QPR when they were challenging Manchester United at that point. Manchester City is a well-oiled machine. All in all, if Arsenal do not keep pace with Manchester City at the start, because City do know that Arsenal are more than likely their closest challengers, since Liverpool, Chelsea, and Manchester United all have different upheavals as to why they are not able to keep up with City at this point. It was good to see Gabriel Jesus back. I hope that they're not rushing him, because you don't want a reoccurrence of that knee injury that has been niggling him for the last few months, especially since the World Cup of last year. Fabio Vieira made a very good cameo, and he is genuinely the reason why Arsenal came back to tie this game. And even more so, we need to talk about Kai Havertz. There's a player in there, but for whatever reason, he just doesn't seem to gel with the team at the moment. Whether it's his sideways passes or the fact that he is afraid to make turns or do some of the things that Odegaard or Saka or Martinelli do when they attack, something is up. And whether it's the fact that he hasn't fit into the system yet, or whether that he's still carrying some of his travails from Chelsea from last season, he needs to get over that. If Arsenal are to consistently have him playing as the 8, or if they are to have him slot in as a false 9, he needs to build up his confidence, and he needs to start playing into the Arsenal way. Manchester City are not going to relent, and the first 2 games showed us that they are as sharp as they were towards the end of last season. Now, they didn't need to be superheroes to beat Burnley 3-0, and they were dominant, but not superimposing against Newcastle, because they knew how to grind out that result. Arsenal needed to do more than just grind out today's result. Arsenal needed to win this game comfortably. Now, historically, Fulham, as I said in my preview yesterday, have posed Arsenal different challenges when they face each other at the Emirates. I gave an example of the Samir Nasri game where he scored 2 goals, including a nice dazzling run and finish at the near post. Or last season when they had to come back from 2-1 down with Gabriel Magalhães's goal at the 87th minute. So there was always a chance of Arsenal dropping points. I just, however, feel as though if this was Manchester City, they would have closed out this game. And Arsenal's needless concession of chances in the first half, as well as Mikel Arteta's insistence on trying to play Thomas Partey at right back and have him invert into a double pivot attack, might not be what Arsenal need right now as they start the season. And it might be some growing pains into trying to play into this formation better. But if Arsenal do not keep their composure in such games as these, they are going to lose. I remember Thierry Henry speaking on Arsenal last season, and he gave a very poignant quote talking about emotion and the fact that Arsenal were playing with a lot of emotion last season. One thing you should know about emotion is that emotion can go either way. It can make you come back from a 2-0 scoreline to win 3-2, or it can make you go from a 2-0 scoreline to losing 3-2, because emotions are tempestuous and they are fleeting. You need composure. You need the cold, calculated, mercenary attitude that Manchester City approached the title with. So if you hark back to 2012, Kun Aguero last-minute goal, that was an emotional goal. Manchester City needed that to get over the hump of winning their first title in over 40 years. Since then, they became this robot that does not relent at any opportunity they have at catching and eclipsing their rivals. But the fact that they have new personnel, Arteta seems to be tinkering with the starting lineup a whole lot, tinkering with the formations, while Manchester City seemed the more settled of the two. It raises questions as to whether Arsenal can last the distance. Now, I'm going to do my predictions towards the end of this week, because I want the transfer window to close first before I formulate a concrete thought on who I think the top 4 will be, or who City's closest challenges will be. But at this point, I do think it's in Manchester City's corner, and it is their title to lose. And if Arsenal do not start gathering pace and making their not only performances stick, but their results become more commanding, they are not going to last the distance against a team that consistently gets over 90 points. As far as Pep Guardiola is concerned, this is a perfect result for him. And he's going to be, well, he's in the surgery room right now. But when he has the opportunity to speak to his players, he will tell them that, hey, they blinked first. It's time for us to pounce on this type of result. But that's all I have for right now, guys. Thank you for tuning in. To the new subscribers, welcome. And to anybody interested in joining this community, please hit that subscribe button at the bottom. Make sure you hit that like. I am going to review the rest of the games that took place today, as well as Chelsea's game against Luton. For now, guys, peace.